We were shorthanded in week 6 and we paid the price. But it looks like we might be getting healthy at the exact right time. So we did fall to Sal Vetri in our week 6 matchup. And I'm going to start here by looking at the standings. We are currently in 8th place after this loss. But there are 3 teams that are 3-3. We are the lowest scorer of the 3 of those by about 30 points. The team in 3rd place, Zero Dark Avery, they're 4-2. So we're only a game back of 3rd. This middle of the standings here is all very tight. It's very competitive. And these are the teams that are going to be fighting for the playoffs. So our week 6 matchup ended with Sal scoring 168 points. We ran into an absolute wagon this week. Our team barely scored over 100. Starting with the quarterbacks, Jordan Love, about 16 points. Not as good as I would have liked. It was the right decision to play him ahead of Justin Fields, who had an awful day in London. But Love, I was hoping for a little more passing volume. 26 attempts, not even 300 yards. He had 1 touchdown through the air. Jacobs had a few on the ground. That's always something that could happen. Sal's Justin Herbert didn't do much, about 19 points. Running back is where we started to get blown away. We had J.K. Dobbins in that London game. The international games are just all sloppy. Like, this was terrible. The Broncos offense looked really bad, and normally the Jets are really easy to run on. But Dobbins ends up with just 40 yards on 14 carries, no receptions, no touchdowns. He still is the lead running back there, which is what we need from him going forward. But this just wasn't a good day for Dobbins. Hopefully when he gets back to normality in the States, he'll be able to put up some more performances like he has this season when he's been so consistent. And Devon Achane is just carrying our team. 16 carries for 128 yards, 2 touchdowns on the ground. He also had 4 receptions for 22 yards. He is just absolutely elite at the position right now. Had that big 49-yard touchdown. Even with the Dolphins being absolutely abysmal, Devon Achane is performing above what is expected of him. Now, with the worries of Mike McDaniel getting fired, I feel like if they were going to do it this season, they would have done it already. Like, they've looked so bad. But there is always the chance that he does get fired and that something changes. But Achane is the type of talent that would win out in that situation, and I have no fear that he's going to keep producing. Sal's running backs, 24 points for McCaffrey, just under 24 points for Jonathan Taylor. These two are just on. I said hopefully we can keep them to under 50. We did, and it was the rest of his team that killed us and our team not performing at all. In our wide receiver slots, Kendrick Bourne did all that he could. Almost 20 points, 142 yards for the second week in a row. It's his exact same yardage mark as he had in the previous week. This is everything I could have asked for from a spot start in Kendrick Bourne, but it was other guys like Keenan Allen who let us down. 6.7 points, 4 for 27. He had 3 really good weeks where he caught a touchdown in each of them, and now he's had 3 really bad weeks where he hasn't caught a touchdown. I don't think it's over for Keenan Allen, but he's definitely somebody who will be a rotation play for me and will be a consideration for the bench each and every week going forward. Sal's wide receivers, Chris Olave was fine, and George Pickens just torched us. No CeeDee Lamb against the Panthers, and he just goes off. 9 catches, 168 yards, and a touchdown, 31 points. Those are the types of scores that win you weeks, and it really helped Sal this week. At tight end, Darren Waller, almost 10 points. It's fine for a tight end. He scored a touchdown, which is the only reason he got any points in this game. I'm still bullish on Waller going forward. His snap percentage and route participation increased again this week. He's not going to have a big game every week, but he's definitely going to be a viable tight end, I believe, for the rest of the season. We do potentially have George Kittle coming back this week, and so I will have to discuss the tight end spot on this roster going forward more when we get to our week 7 matchup. Sal's tight end Trey McBride, great game from him, 8 for 72 and a touchdown. Just stacking these big scores on top of each other, we had no chance this week. Looking at the flexes here is just gross. Hunter Henry, bad. Deebo Samuel, bad. The matchup was already over come Monday night. He was questionable going in. I'm hoping that the nagging heel injury is sort of what prevented him from performing, and that when he gets that right, he'll be better. I don't think this is predictive of his future. I'm still really happy to have Deebo. Sal's flexes weren't good. Didn't matter. Kickers, about even. And Sal's defense, the Rams, they kind of went off against the Ravens, only allowing 3 points, picking off Cooper Rush, a bunch of sacks, fumbles. And the Colts got dismantled by Jacoby Brissett. They ended up winning the game, but allowed 27 points. All in all, not a great week for the fan wagon. The only thing to discuss is on the bench, Justin Fields. And no, I'm not worried. In bad matchups, I'm not going to play him because he's not a good NFL quarterback. But in good matchups, like next week against the Panthers, he could put up 25 points. And that upside is very valuable. in my opinion. Now that's all for our beatdown that we endured in week 6. Let's move over to the waiver wire. All right, on waivers this week, we start with Zach picking up Bam Knight for $27. Bam Knight was on waivers. I think somebody had him rostered and then dropped him, and then Zach went in with a big bid. Nobody else bid anywhere close, so a little bit of a waste of fab there from Zach. But he was named the Cardinals' starting running back. He out-carried Michael Carter. Now, if the Trey Benson injury is longer than expected, this could be a good pickup for Zach. We have Mason getting the only viable defense that was on waivers this week, really in the Chicago Bears. They're playing the Saints in week 7. I was the only other bid. I bid $3. Mason got them for $6. Tez Johnson gets picked up for $5. We get Kayshon Boutte, who had a big week. We dropped Hunter Henry. Aaron Rodgers gets picked up. Nick Chubb gets dropped. I will be putting in a claim for him. More defenses get picked up. Mason swaps kickers. I also swapped kickers. I picked up the Dolphins as my second choice behind the Bears this week. The Dolphins play Cleveland. Now, I do not think the Dolphins are a good defense, but my hope there is that they just pick off Dylan Gabriel a few times. A few other irrelevant pickups, and then there's my kicker swap. Now, I had Eddie Pinheiro going into the weekend. He ends up with a huge score, but not on my team. With Debo being questionable for Monday night, what I had to do is pick up Atlanta's kicker, who also played on Monday night. And then if Debo was ruled out, basically I didn't have anybody on my bench that I could drop to pick up somebody to put in the lineup ahead of Debo. Because of the buys and injuries, that's what filled my bench. So my plan was if Debo couldn't go, I was going to drop the kicker, just not have a kicker for this week, and pick somebody else up to throw in the flex. But now I have Eddie Pinheiro back, and all is right in the world. That's it for waivers. Let's move on to week 7. All right, in week 7, we are coming up against Mr. Corey Bushel, Bush of the Fantasy Stock Exchange channel. Big fan of Bush, really, really nice guy. But we're going to take him down. Bush is facing several issues with his roster this week, kind of like what we dealt with last week. Starting with the quarterback position, he is playing Dak Prescott because Lamar Jackson, who was injured anyways, but now he's on bye. So no Lamar for Bush this week. Dak against Washington, it's a fine matchup. He should do all right. We have Justin Fields, and I am putting him back out there against the Carolina Panthers. I am a believer in the fantasy value of Justin Fields. He is not a good NFL quarterback, but he does not need to be for me to score fantasy points. He's had 2 tough defenses to come up against, the Bills in week 2 before they were injured, and then last week with the Broncos. And he was awful in both those weeks. The other weeks, 29 points, 27 points, 25 points. I think this will be another 20-plus point game for Fields, and I'm excited to have him in my lineup for it. At running back, Devon Achane and Bijan Robinson, it is a heavyweight battle. We don't need to say anything about those two. Currently in my running back 2 slot is J.K. Dobbins. He is coming up against the New York Giants. Now, Dobbins is going to be involved in a bunch of decisions that I have to make this week, which include Jordan Mason, who is currently on my bench, and a bunch of my wide receivers who are flex eligible. I'll talk about those decisions a bit more as we get through the lineup. But Bush's RB2, he might have finally found one. Isaiah Pacheco has been relegated to the bench, and he is starting Kamani Vidal, who had a huge week last week. Now, obviously, it was against the Miami Dolphins, who have a terrible defense who you can run all over. We saw Rico Dowdle do that the week before. Now, the Indianapolis defense, not so easy. So I'm hoping that there's a little fall from grace from Vidal here, that Bush gets a little excited about that big performance in week 6. He's putting him out here in week 7, and I'm hoping for a low score. At my wide receiver slots, Debo, I'm throwing him right back out there. He is an auto play. Now, currently, Keenan Allen is in the wide receiver 2 slot. This could easily change. Ricky Pearsall right now is on the bench. My top 2 wide receivers, Nico Collins and Mike Evans, are in the flexes because they both play on Monday. But Keenan, I don't need to start him every week. If he's not scoring a touchdown, he doesn't seem to be very productive, even with QJ out like he was last week. Ricky Pearsall, obviously on the bench. He was out last week. If he can go this week, then it's going to be a decision that I have to make between him and Keenan Allen, likely. Bush is starting Ladd McConkey and Xavier Worthy. He has Zay Flowers on bye this week, who he won't have available to him. And currently at tight end, it's Darren Waller against Michael Mayer. Now, if George Kittle is back, he probably slots right into my lineup. I don't have word yet as of this recording whether George Kittle will play. I hope that he does, but also if I have to start Waller for another week, I'm not too worried. Bush is relying on Michael Mayer with Brock Bowers potentially out for another week. I imagine that obviously will change if Brock Bowers plays. He'll probably put Kyle Pitts in there and find another flex option because he does have Pitts in the flex right now next to Josh Downs, neither of which I am very worried about. This is where I'm saying that he's down bad like we were last week, flexing a tight end and starting Josh Downs. Kickers, we don't care. I have the Miami defense at Cleveland. Like I said, hoping that we just pick off Dylan Gabriel a few times. And Bush is starting the Steelers defense at Cincinnati on Thursday night. Joe Flacco, come through for me, please. Going over to the bench, I do have decisions to make. Now, quarterback is not one of them. I'm starting Justin Fields. 99% chance I'll do that. Jordan Love is there as a backup just in case. And then Jordan Mason, Ricky Pearsall, and Kendrick Bourne even, they're all in play. Jordan Mason, I could play over Keenan. I could play him over J.K. Dobbins if I decide to. He's against Philly. He still has that full backfield with Aaron Jones still out. Philadelphia, a fine matchup. Cam Scadaboo was able to run on them last week. He could very well end up in my starting lineup. Ricky Pearsall, if he plays, I would be happy to play him if he comes in fully healthy. And if he doesn't come in fully healthy, and if Kittle misses again, Kendrick Bourne, we've seen, is a fine play. I could throw him out there. And obviously the last thing is George Kittle on my IR. If he plays, I'll probably start him and Waller would move to the bench. Bush's bench is a tough spot for him this week. Obviously, we talked about Lamar and Zay Flowers, but he also lost Egbuka this week. He goes down with the hamstring injury. Seems like he sort of took the hamstring injury from Mike Evans, who should hopefully be back this week. I sort of skipped over Mike Evans and Nico Collins, but those are the guys in my flex spots right now. I hope Mike Evans is back this week for Monday Night Football at the Lions. Should be a high over-under game, should be a lot of passing yards. And if Mike Evans is back from this 3-week absence with a hamstring injury and Egbuka and Godwin are out, he could absolutely eat in this game. And Nico Collins back off the bye against Seattle on Monday night, this doubleheader. Hopefully they have figured some stuff out on offense over there in Houston, and Nico Collins has a big game. I'm looking forward to this matchup quite a bit. The fan wagon has been a perfect pattern of a win and then a loss. It's been win-loss, 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 which means we're due for a dub. And it's looking likely. I have a 64% chance to win at the moment. Bush is heavily shorthanded, as I was last week. Obviously, anything can happen, but we're feeling good about this matchup, and hopefully we come out the other side above 500. Thank you all very much for watching and listening. Hit the like if you enjoyed this video and if you're enjoying the series. Hit the subscribe button to make sure that you catch the next one. Good luck to all of you in your matchups this week, and I will see you in week 8.